I'm the guy in the funny hat. I did a video a while ago where I deconstructed my track Agent Orange, but this one I'm going to show you how I'm going to deconstruct and show you how I made my latest track Dabbler. So this song is on my music channel, which is 20 knots. I'll put a link in the description to it. But basically, it's a metal-inspired drum and bass track, which was inspired by a song called Crevasse by The Chemists. I think it's called Crevasse. Anyway, I wanted to copy the sound of that, but sort of put my own spin on it. So it's got this big, long-winded intro. Also, just going to point this out, this is made in LMMS, which is a free and open DAW. And I'm using all the native instruments inside it. I'm not using any VSTs. This is all native, what comes with the soft. It just comes with the program. The guitars, of course, are recorded by myself, so I've recorded them in Audacity, and I'll cover how I've done them later on, but this is all just native to the software. No VSTs. Try to use as many free things as I can. There's a lot of weird sampled stuff, and again, I'll go through some of that as we go along. So this particular track starts off with a big build-up here. The build-up is inspired a lot by a lot of Pendulum. In fact, a lot of my stuff is inspired by Pendulum because they're like the goat. Anyway, so it's got this big thing which introduces the main melodic idea here, which is also reflected in a piano, wherever that is. I think it's here. And here. It's very quiet. Because it leads into the actual melody, which is this. It's kind of metric inspired, but yeah. So I'll play the intro and then I'll deconstruct it.
Some young people are attracted to the occult by seemingly harmless pleasures, such as games and music. They start by participating in fantasy role-playing games, like Dungeons and Dragons, and listening exclusively to heavy metal rock music.
So that's how it opens. A lot of this is really simple stuff, so everything just sort of comes in slowly. I've got the main. I forgot how lush these strings sound. Okay, so that's the main strings. And then I've got Nazi noise. What the hell is? It's just white noise. Nazi noise. White noise. Off. Okay, well done. Sorry, some of the things that I've named here are going to offend some people. I'm very sorry. Nazi noise is white noise. Okay, that makes sense. And then a lot of this is just random samples I've got. So this sound here, it's from a film called Repulsion. Really old film. In fact, I deliberately chose that film. I practically had to rewatch it to skim through it because basically part of that film has this woman going insane, and part of it is the flat that she's living in sort of crumbling away and like big holes forming the walls, and it's got this incredible sound design for the time. It's really cool. It's like from the 60s. It's a black and white film. It's really old. I think it's in public domain or whatever now. You can watch it on archives. It's a bit of a weird film. But the sound that it has when the flat is sort of crushing apart, I remember it from film studies days. Anyway, the less said about that, the better. And the sound, I remembered like how it resonated through me when I first heard it. I thought, oh, I'm going to add that. I'm going to have that noise in it. So I opened Audacity, I scrubbed through the film, sampled it, and then we've got that. So, whoop, I didn't want to do that. So, that's what that is. And I've just repeated it. I've got some random samples from like jungle sample packs. So because I make a lot of drum and bass, I tend to throw in the odd, what would you call it, like just jungle-ish sounds, and one of them is this. Just that, which is quite disturbing. I think this is another one from that as well. Yeah, it is. And this one? Yeah. So they're all from the same sort of jungle pack. I've got some speeching elements. This is from a documentary about teenagers getting into Satanism.
Some young people are attracted to the occult by seemingly harmless pleasures, such as games and music.
And then it just goes on a bit like D&D and heavy metal. And I thought, well, this is like a rock thing I'm going for. So why not? Why not add that? So then, yeah, it goes in about Dungeons and Dragons and then into that. I've got another sample here. I think that's from the Jungle pack as well. I think. Yeah, it is. It's from a Jungle pack. So, I've got that and then mixed with the melody. And then there's just these risers. So, there's the main melody here, which is a simplified version of the main melody, which is that. That's been duplicated here. Just some of the notes. So it eases you into the main melody without giving you the main melody. And then just synth risers. So this just slowly builds up on the lower end. It starts off high, down a bit, until it's a growl. And then I've got a couple of extra risers. So I've got this one which pitches down. It's similar to the one I used in my track Airstrike, which was meant to mimic the sound of like a falling, like an airplane and a falling bomb is what it was going for. So that's quite cool. And then I've got this as well. And all together they build up.
They start by participating in fantasy role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, and listening exclusively to heavy metal rock music.
And then we get into the meat of the actual intro, the bit where the main melody kicks in, the drums come in, the guitars come in. It develops into the actual start of it. So I've got another thing from Repulsion. So I've thrown that in, along with a build up of a crash and things like that. Lots of reverse cymbals, stuff like that, just to build it up. And then we get the main melody, which is just these two synths here. So one of them is quite simple. And then one's just a bit more aggressive. And together they sound like this. Essentially, the detuned Ghost just adds a bit of, I don't know, it doesn't add texture, but it adds a bit of depth to the sound a little bit. Just makes it sound a bit more interesting than normal. And then I've got an off-kilter snare here, which has been filtered. My drums are very heavily filtered here. Because a lot of this just relies on the guitars and the synths there just to build it up. And the guitars are quite simple. So it's double tracked, but it's not strictly double tracked. So I've kind of cheated in a way. So what I do, if I zoom out of this, you'll see. So what I do is I'll record myself playing the same thing multiple times. So these are all different takes. The track will be running in the background, and I'll sit with my guitar and I'll play the part that I want to play, and then I'll have a break for 4 beats, and then I'll repeat, and then I'll just, when I actually come back to the project, I'll pick which one I liked the best. I'll basically pick the best take. It's kind of like when you get a voice actor to sit there and say the same line over and over and over again, and then you just pick whichever one works best. Nice and simple. So I picked this one. So it's there's 2 separate takes. This is how I've double tracked it. So even though I've done it where I've gone stop and start on each time, because I've got multiple instances of me playing the same thing, there's slight variations with it, very subtle. And so I just take 2 separate takes. As long as they're different, it gets you that double tracked guitar sound. So this is one of them. And then this is the other one. This is the other one. And you can see it's from the same sample, it's from the same set, but it's just a different take on that same set. So you get that thick guitar sound by essentially double tracking them. So again, there. Nice and simple. And this was actually recorded using an M-Wave Tank G or whatever it is. It's a guitar effects pedal that's been advertised like to hell everywhere, and I kind of wanted one. Kind of wanted to see what it was like, so I bought one. And honestly, it's quite good. Quite a few interesting sounds you can get out of it, and I was quite happy with the results. I've got that, and then I've got the rhythm guitar here. I think this is just one rhythm guitar. It's just like one thing. Yeah. Again, I just played it repeatedly over and over and over again to a click track, and then just took the best sample. And I went with this one. So I've cheated with this quite easily. I've just done and then just repeated that first bit. But because it's buried a little bit behind stuff, you can't really tell. I do this a lot. It's a really good tactic. There's also sidechaining. You can do that if you're really lazy. But I'll get onto that later in another project. And then here's my other guitar part, because there's 3 guitar parts in this. So this is the intro. So this is the main melody bit. Sounds awful, honestly. Sounds really bad. Again, because it's buried a little bit, it's not too bad, not too noticeable, because it's not the main focus. It just adds a bit more interest to the guitar parts. And then yeah, everything just increases. So what is it? So this is my main bass sound, and this just slowly comes in. What else is there? I don't think there's much else, to be honest. There's this go sound, which is from Auto Modelista, and a crash. Really simple stuff. And then we get these samples here.
Hail safe.
So, what's this? That's something from, yeah, the Jungle Pack. I think this is a pitched thing. Oh, it's backmasked. That was Hail Satan in reverse against the actual forward Hail Satan. What is it? It's about here, isn't it?
Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
which is from the Whitest Kids, you know, American comedy group, kind of like Monty Python if they were more debauched. And yeah, rest in peace, Trevor Moore. Yeah, it's the Teachers Union sketch. If you want to look it up, that'll really piss off the kids. Absolutely, I've watched all of Whitest Kids, and this just popped into my head when I was like, oh my god, it's going on about like Satan and Satanism. Why not just have the Teachers Union Hail Satan as the drop?
Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
Brilliant. Because it sounds half-assed as well. It just sounds awful. And then from there, of course, it goes into the main bit, which I've took liberties with.
Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
So this bit is when it really kicks in. And again, there's not much going on. So there's just the drop really from there. So that's just the sounds building up, and then another burst sound from Repulsion, which has been pitched. Really satanic, like. A couple of crash cymbals, things like that, just to get it in. And then we get the beef of the drums. There's a lot of crashes. I'm quite surprised there's no breakbeat loop in this. It is just those. But then again, I was trying to just go with like a rock sound. So that's just the main drum beat. Just really natural sounding drums. Really straightforward, nothing interesting going on whatsoever. There's these fireball flicks. Which just add a bit of interest to it, I guess. The bass just stays flat. I don't do anything with the bass. And then the guitar is just... Oh, actually. I tell a lie, there is something going on with the bass. Completely forgot about that bit. I can't even remember why I did that, but whatever. There's them. And then there's also this bit, which just emphasises what the guitar's doing. I think this is the same as well. And again, these were all just made using the triple oscillator. That's a default sound, that's a preset. That's Garfunkel, which originally comes with an arpeggiator. I've just turned the arpeggiator off, pitched it, and you get a nice aggressive sound there. And then it's just mixed with guitars. And of course, because the guitars are slightly different, pretty cool. Again, yeah. And then you get this relief section here. The relief section is just a break from the monotonous noise, really. So there's not much going on with it, to be fair. It's just literally that. And I just played it on a keyboard and threw it in. And it's also got the go sounds, just pitched up. Oh, we do have a breakbeat. It's just there. That's it. That's the only breakbeat I've got in the whole thing. I like how it stops and starts, so that's why I've chose that. I don't think I've done anything to it. Box break 4. Yeah, I've not done anything to it. I've just had it as that, which just... goes back to this first bit, but just with the drums there. With just a couple of drum fills. Nothing special. It's really deceptively simple. A lot of this. A lot of it I just focus mainly on the ideas I've got in my head, plot them in, and just have fun with it. What else is there? I don't think there's really anything else going on with this. There's a couple of like crashes and things. So I have things with like, if I select these, there's. So you can hear there's a lot of samples and things just going on. And that's just the default triple oscillator, that. It's just a whoosh. That's it. There's really nothing going on with that at all. Couple of extra samples here and there. There's these extra snares which I sometimes do. So I just basically look at where I've put snares here, so there's no snare here, so then I just add the snares, and this is just 2 snares. It's a trick. I learned it when I studied music production, and a lot of other music producers do it. It's kind of a common thing now, where you stack sounds. So some people do it as like, they'll call it like transients and all this technical stuff. You're just stacking things that just favour better frequencies, or just sound like a bit of it sounds cool, so you're throwing it in. You're just mixing and matching different sounds and stacking them. It's a common thing. It's also part of double tracking, but I've just done that here. So there's 2 kicks, one that's more mid, one that's a bit more bassy. There's 2 snares, one that's really snappy, that's the really filtered one, and that's more the mid one. A couple of crash sounds, and just a hi-hat, which is, this is sampled from a breakbeat that comes with it. So there's a breakbeat that comes with this program called Jungle, and it's just the most generic. That's it. That's the whole thing. In fact, where is it? Oh god. Ignore all these fold names because this is just silly. Is it under breaks? It might be under breaks. Where's breaks gone? Beats? Yeah, there it is. So I've just taken the hi-hat sound out of it. Which is that. It's one of my favourite hi-hat sounds, to be honest. And everything else is just the same. So the guitars are the same in this part. Nothing extra happens. A lot of it's just carried with the guitars. And then it just repeats the same bit and has an ending. It doesn't really add any extra sections. It's just all simple. But there are some weird things going on. There's this here. Now, this is a weird thing. This is a 4-to-the-floor sidechain. And it's affecting the mixer. So I've not actually brought the mixer up because most of the stuff, it just relies on ideas more than anything else. But the bass add whatever the hell is added to that. Added pad, whatever that is. Oh, it's that. That is the most simple stuff. So all this is inside the program is a kicker plugin, which just emulates a kick drum, muted because it sounds awful, with a peak controller. This is the thing that controls the up and down pumpy action. So I've turned the bass velocity down, so where it starts from is slightly lower. The amount that it dips down is only a bit, so it doesn't completely bottom out on the mixer, so you don't get a horrible pop or click or whatever. The multiplier's set to just 1. You can set it high if you really want to be aggressive with it. Don't need to. Long decay, so that it takes a long time for it to come back up. let's not hit the microphone. So you get a sort of a really strong initial kick down, and then it just takes a minute to come back up. So it's like boom, 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 boom. It's really good. My hand's not in, but it's like that. It's like smacking a ball down. That's how it works basically. And in fact, if I turn it off, I don't think it's that noticeable, to be honest. If I just mute that. There is a thing a lot of people do, which is where they have it so it emulates what the kick and the snare do. Like that. But, I just had it force the floor because I couldn't be bothered. So that's what does that. And that's a really simple technique. There are more extravagant ways you can use it. I use it on guitar sometimes. When I've played sloppily, I'll use that to tighten everything up. And then in terms of, like, effects chains, this is where it gets a bit weird. Now, I'm not one of these people who, like, is stuck in their ways of, like, everything must have this particular chain, or, like, this is the way you EQ everything. There was a thing I learned in one of my first production classes, and it was just to slap an EQ and a compressor on everything. And I was like, that doesn't make sense, because I was already making music at home just for fun. And I was like, I don't do that, and I can get okay results. Is this really necessary? And it's not. And it turns out the teacher didn't know what the hell they were doing. And then when they actually brought in someone who did, then, yeah. General rule of thumb for my drums is I slap everything onto the same. This is not recommended, but I'm not doing this professionally, so it's fine. I slap all my drums into one channel, compress the ever-loving shit out of it, EQ it to sort of, I would say, save face. EQ it so it sounds good, and then, yeah, but again, none of this is actually that good. So, on my drums, I've got, first of all, an EQ, because without the EQ, it doesn't sound very good. In fact, it sounds beefy, but a lot of those lower frequencies kind of get in the way. So I've just gone mad with EQ. It's almost like I don't know what I'm doing. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's quite simple. Compressor, because if I turn the compressor off, the drums are really dry, so the compressor just adds a bit of beef to it. And yeah, not really much. So it's a low threshold with just a little bit of it, like a little bit. And yeah, I don't really go mad. There's a bit of makeup gain to sort of bring it up. I tend to crush, but I didn't want to overly crush it because they sounded okay. I just wanted to neaten it up a little bit, and yeah, if I turn the compressor off again and the EQ, and then just bring in the compressor, it does help. And I think also with having the limiter also limiter just makes it bigger. And then of course with the EQ, without the limiter, it's like a brick wall limiter. It just brings everything up, makes it big, makes it hit hard, keeps it consistent, and just gets me to that pushing through the mix stuff. Again, similar with the bass, bit of EQ. The bass is actually quite interesting, to be honest, so if I just take some bass from out the EQ. Without the bass booster, there's not really much bass. And again, got a compressor just to and then an amplifier as well, just to that. Actually, the amplifier is just there, so because I'm sidechaining it, and the volume is being controlled, I then can't control this. So I then add an amplifier plugin to then amplifier effect to then act as my volume knob to automate the amplifier so that I can gradually bring in the volume, because I wouldn't be able to, because that fader is locked to the pumpy action of that sidechain. In a nutshell, it's just the quirks of LMMS, I guess. But that's how I did it. So that's how I can get the bass sort of come in nice and gently here. So if I sort of see this, it's going to start increasing. There we go. Just the quirks of the program. That's how you get around it. And then in terms of guitar, there's not really much. So because of the way I've recorded the guitar, because I did everything before it went into the computer, a lot of the sound is fine. I made sure I was recording at a decent level. I made sure that my sound going into the computer was something I was happy with. So then the only things I needed to do were very slight EQs. And again, LMMS, part of the fun of the program is you can get quite a lot done quite quick. So the guitar, in terms of the effects stack, there isn't one. I wish there was. There isn't. There's no distortion effects, no nothing. It's straight DI in from the effects unit that I was using, which is a physical bit of hardware. There's a bit of EQ on the guitars. Which guitars are these? Okay. Now, I posted some of this track to a drum and bass subreddit, and they said that the guitar sounded quite piddly and weak and quite tinny. It was by design. So because I wanted the bass to cut through and I didn't want to have anything sort of clashing, I took out some of the high frequencies and some of the mids and absolutely eviscerated the guitars. So that is not a healthy EQ. They sound fine on their own without the EQ. The EQ just adds to it. And then if I bring in the second guitars, so all I've got on these is a compressor, and I think it's just because, let me check these. Ah, yes. So just because they're individual picked notes, because I'm not a great guitar player, some of the notes are played harder or softer than others. So to help them be a bit more uniform, I've just compressed them, because a compressor will bring down some of the louder sounds, raise some of the lower sounds, and just help unify everything. So I've just added a little bit of compressor onto that. And then in terms of the actual guitar sounds, so there are some things you can do just directly on the samples, but I don't think I have. No, I've not done anything to these. So sometimes what I'll do is when I'm making a sample, I'll just go into here under the envelopes tab and just change the filter on it and just tweak it a bit. It just helps if I'm doing anything, if I've got any sort of guitar sounds or any samples and it's got maybe some lingering low end, or a common one with guitars is I'll sometimes have, as I'm moving my hands up and down the neck, a squeak. So to help eliminate that, I'll just roll that off on the top end, and then it eliminates it quite quick. But But yeah, none of that seems to be done here. This is all just completely clean, completely as is, nothing going on, not even any effects or anything, because everything's, I was happy with it going in. And I think that's the main thing. If you're going to record guitars, I'm really against the whole you can fix it in post, because it gives you that mindset that, you know, you're not committing to anything. If you know you can fix it in post, then you're not going to actually commit to it properly. You're going to have sloppy stuff here, then everywhere. For some people it works. For me, it doesn't. I like to try and nail it. I like the challenge of trying to play the guitar part perfectly and be happy with it. And this took a lot of takes. Some of them in the sample that I've got, because it is just one long sample of me just playing the same thing over and over again. There are some times when I've fluffed it, and I've obviously not chosen those. Sometimes it's something as simple as my hand moved in a funny way and it squeaks and I couldn't use it. Sometimes it's just I was slightly off on one of the notes, and to other people they might, you know, just sit there and cut the waveform up and then realign it. Again, don't like doing that. I'd rather just play it right, get it in. There, we're happy with it. And even then, I'm okay if it's slightly off. If it isn't exactly perfect, that's fine. You know, a lot of rock music back in the day, they didn't play to a click track, they just had a drummer, and so the BPM sort of wanders about, stays more or less in the same sort of area, but it wanders about, it's not strict. And I think it adds a bit more, I wouldn't say like natural sound, because that's a silly thing to think, but I think it's fine. I don't think it's too bad. It's not like it's glaringly off or anything. You can tell here in the main sort of thing with the palm mute. You can hear that it sort of slows down a little bit near the end, and that's just because my hand was getting tired doing it. Because that was like, just doing a million takes of it. But even then, it's not too noticeable. And there is a way you can get around that, of course, with a sidechain. You put a sidechain on. Metric does this. I didn't even know Metric did this, but whatever. You sidechain the guitar in the same way that you would sidechain a pumpy organ dance thing, but you do it in reverse. So instead of it dropping the sound down, the sound starts from 0 and kicks up in rhythm with the guitar strums. So, for instance, if you were doing Wonderwall, you'd play Wonderwall on guitars with a strumming of da 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 da, and then you'd have a kick drum going bum 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 bum. So every time the kick went off, or whatever sample you want to use, that guitar would come up and emphasize just that chord, that strum, that note, whatever it might be, and then it drops it back down, and it kind of acts like a compressor, but it's not a compressor. It's more like a limiter or like a gate in a way, but you get a bit more control out of it, and you can really finesse like which notes you want to emphasize or whatever. But I don't really use that, and I only use that with guitar synth sounds that I'm then going to layer together, squash it together, and make a thicker sound overall. So I don't tend to do that. So with this, I was happy with the guitars going in, recorded them, hey presto, done. And then everything else, there's just little things. So one of them on here is a dual filter. So this is just a I'm gonna have that stick here, and this is actually just for the intro. So here, where is it? There's an automation track for this, but I don't know where it is. It's that knob. So it's just a low pass filter that starts off low from there. So and then it just builds up. Really simple stuff. So yeah, that's how I made my track Dabbler. I was really happy with it, honestly. Onwards and upwards, I suppose. I'm not going to stop here, of course. I'm going to carry on. But yeah, that's my track. That's how I made it. And I hope someone who uses LMMS finds this useful, I guess. If you didn't, then at least you enjoyed listening to a god awful track that I've made. So yeah, if you have any questions or anything, or you want to ask me how I do things, then send me a message or whatever. But yeah, there we go. In a bit.